Hey everybody, we're just going to give you a heads up that there should be a content warning for discussion of suicide in this episode.
Hey folks, Carolyn here to tell you just a little bit about the Games and Online Harassment Hotline. It's a free text message-based, confidential emotional support hotline that was created specifically for the gaming community. So whether you're a player, a developer, a streamer, a competitor, any part of the gaming community, the hotline is here for you, ready to provide emotional support or help finding the referrals and resources that you may need. Visit gameshotline.org for more information.
I think I watched the first 2 or 3. They're very short. I was just like, I got nothing to say. I don't really give a shit about this show. When it ended, I was like, oh shit, I should have paid attention. It ended in a way that really brought it together, and like I became more invested and I cared more about what was happening.
Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I am Ebony Adams, and I'm joined today by 2 women who drink shots every time they meet another woman in podcasting, Carolyn Pettit and Anita Sarkeesian.
Hello.
Hey! Yeah.
This week we're going to be talking about This Way Up, a 2019 comedy drama from Aisling B about a woman in recovery from a wee nervous breakdown. It's available now on Hulu. Stay tuned.
I can't believe you didn't do that in an Irish accent.
I was going to, but I realized I don't have one. And it's bad what I would be trying to do. Is this the banter?
Yes, it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Feminist Frequency Radio. I'm in the captain's seat because Anita was like, if I get this out of the way early in 2021, I don't have to let Ebony host again for at least another 6 months. So guess what? I'm running things. How do y'all feel about that?
Well,
I think everyone's very excited about it.
Shouldn't be.
I mean, let's let people know Anita's going to be away for the next 2 episodes, which means, Ebony, that you may have to host again very soon. So, consider this a little...
Right.
Yeah,
okay. I guess I had just, in my head, I had assumed that you would host both of those because you're a very good host, and you keep things on track. Whereas I'll just be like, this is the Ebony Power Hour. What do I want to talk about for the next half an hour?
But also, everybody would love that.
Yeah, but do they want that as like regular podcast episode, or do they want that as just like the occasional, slumber party bonus with me? Feel free to write us or talk on the Discord about whether you're interested in slumber parties with Ebony over Zoom. Yeah, what's been going on, you guys? Anything happening this week? Anything you worried about? Anything?
I don't know. Does
anything concerning you?
I don't know.
I'm at this place just emotionally and mentally where, I managed to read like 7 pages of a novel earlier this morning, and I'm like, wow, like I focused on something other than, the doom scroll of Twitter and just like the crumbling, not crumbling, but the openly, rotten face of our democracy, for more than 5 minutes, like way to go me. So yeah, as far as like mental and emotional health, 2021 is just off to a fantastic start, right?
Oh, killer. Absolutely killer. We all knew that like things weren't going to magically change, at the stroke of midnight on New Year's Day, but come on. Like, just a break would have been nice.
And to grind my usual axe, like, I don't think any of it, as dismayed and horrified as a lot of us are by what's happened, I don't think any of us here are surprised, and I think a lot of people who understand the dynamics of America and the role of white supremacy in America and all that are not at the least bit surprised. But what is like frustrating for me, or one thing that's like super frustrating for me, is seeing a lot of liberal, like storied liberal media institutions just wholly mischaracterize the people who participated in the riot. What is the word I'm looking for? The riot on the Capitol as like the typical image of the poor white Trump supporter. When these are people. I mean, obviously yes, there were. I'm sure there were poor white supremacist people in there, but also there were like CEOs and like lawyers and like sons of Brooklyn judges and like these are like. Do you think poor white people can like get off work and drive or fly across country with their like tons of paramilitary gear to storm the Capitol? Like no, like so the deep-seated like just the committed belief that the base and like the only people this like devoted to maintaining white supremacy this violently are like basically like the stereotypical image of the ignorant poor white person. It's like, oh, and you're still sticking to it even now? Like, stop, please. Like, you have your own deep-seated prejudices that we have to confront,
Oh, absolutely. Like, it serves such a useful purpose among white intelligentsia, middle-class intelligentsia in this country who have, more or less, popularly accepted liberal bona fides to, rely on this tired trope of the poor, white, disaffected Trump voter. And it's like, as you say, like it was by and large, like securely middle-class people who had the resources to go storm the Capitol. But also in the same way, it's like, that they're going to trot out the same stuff. So it's going to be poor, uncultured, in quotation marks, like Olive Garden eaters, right? Like that's a problem.
Thanks for that one, Anderson
They will
Cooper.
They will be described as fat.
Yeah.
And they will also be described as slow.
Yes.
Like the same stuff. And it's like, this is, a very useful way for them to obfuscate their own participation in white supremacy by, suggesting I am safely educated and middle class. My tastes are, above reproach. I am not like these other people. And so if I happen to share their assumptions and their ideology, there's a, patina of acceptability that I'm able to put on it in a way that they are not, because there's something, distasteful about the way that they live their lives. And it's bullshit. It is absolutely bullshit. And I'm not I'm not going to be defending any of those white supremacists who stormed the Capitol. But the reason is not because I'm trying to appeal to some sort of like common humanity. Fuck unity. I'm simply saying like, you don't get to, be like, oh, well, these people are different from me because they eat at chain restaurants. Get the fuck out of here.
Right.
I have a rant about something less important but related, and I'm going to save it for the bonus.
Love it. Right. Teaser.
I'm going to read to you my saved Twitter drafts that I never posted.
This is gonna be good. Okay, I can't wait to get to that. All right, well then let's hop into the main business of the hour, which is not Ebony's slumber party, pajama jammy jam. This week, we are talking about This Way Up, which is a 6-part series from Irish writer and comedian Aisling Bea about a woman in London who is struggling to maintain her equilibrium after suffering a nervous breakdown in an extended stay in a rehab facility. The humor is dark, and the emotional depths can be devastating, especially in the quiet scenes between Anya and her devoted, acerbic, frustrated sister, Shona, played by the phenomenal Sharon Horgan. Horgan is perhaps best known stateside for Catastrophe, the series she co-created with Rob Delaney. Horgan also executive produced This Way Up. The show will certainly draw comparisons to Fleabag, the stunning series from writer-producer Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but This Way Up offers its own singular depiction of a woman on the edge. Let's chat about it. Yeah. So I saw this show, I don't know, like a month ago, certainly before Christmas. I had not heard anything about it. I just happened to stumble upon it, during one of those days where you're quietly melding into the couch. And if you're already on one streaming service, you just keep fucking around on that same streaming service because it costs too much energy to actually flip over to something else.
Okay, that's too real. Jesus,
Ebony. But I was delighted by it. And we'll get into it. But it hit me at precisely the right emotional moment. It does take a bit of warming up to, but by the end of the 6th episode, I was so invested in the journey that Anya is desperately trying to make, to keep herself alive and to find meaning in her life and the will to keep pushing through despite her incredible loneliness and grief. And, as I said in the header, the intro, like, of course, people are going to immediately draw comparisons to Fleabag. I would not be surprised if one of the reasons why this show got greenlit is because they, the development folks were like, it's like Fleabag, But I do think that there's a way in which what's going on here is very specific and different from what Fleabag offers. And also, even if it were exactly the same, like, we get enough shows about, like, white dudes who are struggling with shit. Let's, I'm happy to have some more with women, like, struggling and being ugly and sad and angry and not having the right answers and not having things, like, neatly tied up in a bow at the end.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one way I knew that, I think there's something very authentic about this show. Like, I think that Aisling B really understands, the emotional and psychological terrain that she is exploring here with Anya. And part of what makes me say that is that, to be honest, Anya as a character, while I like her, I'm rooting for her, I want what's best for her, like, Anya at times made me really uncomfortable. And what I mean when I say that is that, like, I probably, as my own kind of response to and coping with trauma and things, that I've gone through in the past myself, different people respond to and adapt to those things in different ways, right? And I think part of what I've developed is that when I encounter somebody who seems like they are always on, or like always covering up things by making a joke, or what have you, like, I get really uncomfortable because it starts to feel like, for whatever reason, it just, I don't know how to handle being around, like, that kind of, that's a defense mechanism or a behavior that, I think we all encounter people like that from time to time, people who just seem like they're like, just, everything all the time needs to be some kind of, like, performative bit or joke or something.
Right.
And I felt like there was, so often with Anya, like, there were times where another character would say something kind of sincere or heartfelt or honest, and Anya would, like, respond with some kind of quip, or whatever, and like it made me uncomfortable in the same way that being around an actual person like that made me uncomfortable. Like, I want to be like, no, stop, stop joking around all the time about everything, and, like, like, let yourself be, like, real, or, like, but I understand fully, like, it's not that I think people who do that are, like, bad people or whatever. It's just, for whatever reason, it's just a personality trait that just, like, rubs me the wrong way. Like, it makes me uncomfortable to be around. And because I felt in myself, like, the same kind of that response to this fictional character that I sometimes do to real, authentic human beings, I'm like, oh, this is, like, there's something very, very kind of true about this depiction of Anya and the way in which she is trying to carry on with her life, after, to just trying to make her way in the world and be connected to other people and, live a life that has meaning for herself.
Yeah, she knows, or rather she feels, the danger in letting herself be open to completely experiencing those feelings, because you get the sense while watching her on screen that, she feels as if I don't erect these walls, if I don't pretend that I'm fine, as evidenced by the fact that I can make, these occasionally very dark jokes, but if I instead treat things sincerely and show you how angry I get or how sad I get, I will be too close to the cliff edge again. And I'm not sure that I can come back next time. And so it is just this defense mechanism that she holds on to with this incredible intensity. And you see the ways that people who are made uncomfortable, by her, 24/7 performativity, like the kind of discomfort they have and finding a way to plug in. So, like, Richard, the father of Etienne, who hires her to tutor his son in English, the wonderful Tobias Menges, right? Like the way he constantly has to, check, like, was that a joke? Because that's simply not the way he communicates or understands like human communication.
I totally agree with you, Carolyn, that like I found it really grating after a while. Like, you both understand and know that it's a defense mechanism, and also like, oh my God, this is exhausting. Which is the point. But I also then at the flip side was like, man, this is what makes her so good at her job, right? Like watching her, she teaches English to non-English speakers or non-primary. Yeah. It's not adults. We don't say ESL anymore. I don't know what I can't remember.
Yeah, but to adults who have
where English isn't the first language.
Right.
And she's such a fun teacher, right? You're just like, wow, like I have tutored in these exact situations before, and I'm like, I ain't that good. Like not that good at all. But watching her with Etienne and watching her with those students, you're just like, oh, like there is value to this energy that you have, right? And it comes out, and it has an impact on these people, like a real life-changing impact on people, because you can bring it in that way, right? And Ebony, you made a note in our script about how it's compartmentalizing, right? If you want, I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but I didn't read it as that, but it totally is. Yeah.
Yeah, I was really gratified by the way that the show shows that Anya is fantastic at her job. But, in the ways that she is great as, an English instructor for these, non-native speakers is the same way that she's great with Etienne, who has recently lost his mother, but also with her friend who suffers a relapse during the course of the show, a friend that she met in the rehab facility. She is honestly and sincerely and authentically someone who cares deeply for people, but she does sometimes retreat into that as a way of shielding herself from being known by other people, and it is, or can be, a very successful, albeit temporary, way of compartmentalizing those things that hurt you, those things that are dangerous for you. And, as the person who's sort of in charge in the classroom, or as the English tutor, or the person who's helping her friend, it can be a very safe space to recognize what others need and what makes them vulnerable, so that you don't have to confront where you're vulnerable.
I was just going to say, like, with how good she is at teaching, there's nothing revealing about herself. There's nothing vulnerable about herself. There's nothing that like puts her at risk by doing those things. Right. Yeah. So I read a couple of reviews before we recorded, and one of them was like, it doesn't start off great. The show like is a little bit, the first episode is probably the weakest, as one reviewer said. And I think I watched the first 2 or 3. They're very short. You get through it very quickly. And I was just like, I got nothing to say. I don't really give a shit about this show. Like, cool, whatever. And I continued watching it with that attitude. Like, I didn't take a single note about this show, which I take notes about everything we talk about on this podcast. And when it ended, I was like, oh shit, I should have paid attention. Like, it ended in a way that really brought it together. And like, I became more invested, and I cared more about what was happening. And so I just wanted to share that for folks who like might try to give this a chance, but don't finish. But like, I think there is value to where it goes. And I can I talk about the sister a little bit?
Please do.
So the sister, Shona, she's responsible, and she's together, and she has a job, and she has a relationship, and she like, has a
beautiful colleague who's like very obviously flirting with her all the time.
And it was like, if you don't kiss, I'm gonna lose my shit.
Oh.
So I think that there was one. I think that her relationship with Anya, like their dynamic, like great casting. Their dynamic was wonderful. And I think that they did a really nice job of showing how exhausting it can be to care for someone who's kind of a mess. And I don't mean that in a dismissive way, but like, Anya is like really, really struggling, and also not really letting people help her. And Shona, who really wants to care for her sister, is like, I am tired of this. It's been so long and you're not like letting anybody in. And then everyone around Shona is like, you need to stop paying so much attention to her, right? Like everybody in her life is like, you are spending too much energy and time on this person who isn't giving back. And I think there's something really deep about that, right? About the way that we engage with folks, about the way that like our opinions and advice of the ways our friends interact with their family and stuff like that can have such a deep impact. I don't know. There's something there that I really valued in that expression.
Oh, me too. I think this show, it does it does offer a safe space to say when the people that we love are really struggling, our love for them and our care for them can sometimes make it hard to see the ways in which we're overextending ourselves and trying to keep them propped up. But it is very understanding of the fact that like Shona is never, ever going to stop doing what she does for her sister. She loves her too much and cares for her too much. And I mean, Sharon Horgan is a fantastic comedic actress, but she's also so like devastating in, those quiet scenes where she's just like, Anya, you tried to kill yourself, I will leave every party early if it means that, if I see you walking around a park late at night, I will let you sleep on my couch. No matter how much it frustrates me, no matter how angry I get at you, ultimately, it frightens me too much to know how much darkness has surrounded you. And I will fight to help you learn to fight for yourself and to care enough about staying alive. It just felt so real. Like, I don't think that the show was judgmental at all. And, showing Shona being like occasionally just fed up with having to take care of her sister and resentful over the fact that Anya wasn't yet able to do some of the things that she needed to do for herself, while also recognizing that sometimes she was, suffocating and trying to micromanage Anya in ways that were not helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tricky balance because, I mean, as you said, like Anya, did apparently try to, there was a suicide attempt. So, I mean, yeah, like that balance of like being sympathetic, liking Anya basically as a person, as a character, and wanting her. We as viewers want her to be better. We want her to be like well and healthy and safe and secure and loved. We would never fault Shona for feeling like exasperated or for feeling like, I can't expend the energy right now that the whole Anya situation is like demanding of me, like to not be judgmental about that, because I mean, I'm very big on things like while sometimes media will have the sort of core message or, kind of platitude of like, family always comes first and you always do whatever you have to do for family. And, as somebody who comes from a family where there was toxicity and upheaval and pain and difficulty and where, sometimes you need to like set boundaries of safety between yourself and other people, like sometimes that, if it's done in a really flat and nuanced way, that can seem like out of touch or like, no, you don't understand. Like, sometimes we have to protect ourselves. Sometimes even when it comes to family, we have to put ourselves first or, whatever. So I think that this way up navigates that, gives that whole dynamic the complexity that it really deserves.
And also because they introduced her mother.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Right. And like her mother's not in this family unit in the same way that the sisters are, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, it's also, the show's very, Anya is very aware that the people around her, the people that love her, have a need for her to be better, perhaps sooner, like on a more accelerated timeline than she is yet ready to accept or achieve. And so sometimes she will just straight up lie about things. And this is a very, authentic thing that happens, that people are struggling. We have the need to pretend we're better, not because of, vanity or ego, but because we know that the people around us, are struggling to love us in a moment. And so it's like, I'm gonna lie and say that, the friends that I was gonna meet tonight, who have, sort of uninvited me. Oh no, we're still me, because I know that if I tell you I'm going to be alone tonight, you're going to be worried, and I don't want to put that on you. Or I'm going to tell you that, I've got a new boyfriend or whatever, because I don't want you to. So it's not a lack of self-awareness that is making people still depend upon their friends, or making them, perhaps lie or obfuscate, how they're actually doing. But it really is an awareness of like, other people need me to be better. I'm not better. And so maybe I can fake it enough to just get through this day, this conversation.
Yeah. Shona has her own life, as we alluded to, that she is trying to, navigate in the midst of all this, like business-wise and, her own like personal life, her own romantic life. The one face in this, the one person in this who I recognized and knew from before is the great Asif Manvi as Vish, who's Shona's, boyfriend. And so, and at one point, the family, the Shona and Anya and their mother go over to Vish's family's home, and it's this really great scene. And it does, not that like shows should get like.
I died. I'm sorry to cut you off. I died. Like that was when I was like, okay, this has something. There's something magic here. That
I mean, and not that shows should get like brownie points for this, but this show totally like it does, it incorporates the diversity and the cultural richness of its setting in a way that feels truly like organic and honest and wonderful, right? And without any like condescension or any sense that it's like trying, it's like doing things because of a checklist. It just all feels like authentic and of a piece with the lives of the characters that it's telling the story about.
But the singing. The performances.
Yes, they're so right.
God.
Yes,
sorry, that's what I was referencing earlier. Not to undermine everything that you just said.
Yeah,
but this just—I mean, if you don't want to watch the show, just watch that one episode because what did they sing?
The Cranberry song.
The zombies.
It's just it becomes the most awkward, like dissonant thing. It's like this family get together and people are singing all these like crowd pleasing songs, and then Anya and is it Anya and Shona? Yeah, Anya and Shona do Zombie by the Cranberries, and it just I like that song a lot, but in the context of this like family gathering, it's just such a strange song that anyway, it's quite a wonderful moment.
I'm so glad that y'all brought that up, because I had the same reaction during the scenes. So Anya has a roommate who is a black man, and they're after her roommate, Bradley, sort of semi breaks up with his girlfriend. They have a night staying in, and Anya's there with Bradley and his younger sister and his friend. And Anya is the only white person in the room. This kind of scene rarely happens. We usually get scenes where it's all white people and then one token, minority in a room, right? But this the scene that we have here, it just felt so real. And I was cracking up with Anya thinking that a pick was like, what did she call it? Like a fancy comb or something? I was dying. But really, like there are times when you watch shows where people are supposed to be friends with someone from another race, another culture, and you're like, you literally don't know anybody like this in your real life. Like you're not comfortable. It doesn't feel real. But the easy camaraderie in that scene, and when they go out later to the club, like it just felt so real. As you say, Caro, so organic. Like if we're going to talk about London, the versions of like, lily white London that are, supposed to interest me do not interest me, because that's not the London that so many people know. You cannot, exist in that space without at least brushing up against people from other cultures. But, it should be more than brushing up against. And so I just felt so true and so real. And it reminded me of I May Destroy You.
Yeah.
And the way that I'm blanking on the actor's name. But
Michaela Cole?
But Michaela Cole's roommate and that one white dude. Like there would be scenes where it would be just all people of color in a room and then like this one white dude. And I'm like, I love this inversion because that's not typically what we get, but all of those people, in This Way Up, like, Bradley and his, they all felt like real people. They were not just imported for this scene, this episode. They felt like real people that you would know. I loved it.
I liked the scene related to this dynamic. Like, so Bradley brings his girlfriend that he broke up with back, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's just this weird moment. And I love that they like dragged her out. Like she was like in bed watching movies or whatever, just like wanting to be alone. And I love that they kind of like dragged her out and was like, no, like, come hang out with us. Like, be around people. Like, it seems like you might need it or whatever.
Right.
I thought that there was something really nice about, like, she showing that she does have a lot of support around her and people who care about her, even if it's this woman that she was just making fun of, yeah.
Yeah, and just, like, the ways that recovery can and should be a communal effort. So near the beginning of the series, Shona, invites over a friend that she made from the rehab facility and then makes this entirely ill-advised pass at him, and he very wisely, is like, this is not good for either one of us. We need to work the program. I would love to have sex with you, but this is not good. You will be glad that I made this decision for us in the morning. And then later she has the opportunity to help him once he relapses. She finds him outside the club that they're in, making, horrible choices with, having gotten drunk. And I love that these are not people who exist by themselves, that they do have that support, that they do have those people who care about them in the best ways that they can and as imperfect a way that they can, but just demonstrating that, like, it's really... None of us, fail alone, and none of us are going to succeed alone or get better alone.
Can we talk about Shona's little love triangle?
Yo.
Yeah.
So Shona is dating Vish, and is in a work partnership with Charlotte, and there's like. Throughout the show, the episodes, it's like, yeah, she's with Charlotte again. Or like, she's sort of like, it's becoming this like obsessive relationship in the eyes of the people around Shona. And that like, she can't hang out with Charlotte and anybody else. It has to just be the two of them. Which, is a little shady and weird. And I think it's the last episode where Vish proposes, which is just brutal. Yeah. And I loved that she was like, I don't even know if I want a marriage ever. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know if I want you. It's I don't know if I want this at all. Like, what the fuck? Or why are you dropping this on me when we haven't even discussed it? Because that's not what we do in this day and age, right? Like, and also,
I'm going to tell your family, I don't want kids. Like, and y'all can be upset if you want to, but...
Yeah, I feel like there was a lot, like, I really liked that. And then I was really disappointed that got undermined because, the next scene is Shona on stage giving a speech and talking about her two partners, which I'm like, yo, are y'all going to do a poly thing? Because that would be dope. But like, she didn't separate out like my work partner and my lover partner, right? Like, and so she accepts the proposal in that speech. And I was like, God damn it! You just undermined like the thing I liked the most about this show.
But I mean, but if like for her, I mean, it was fucked up of Vish to propose to her without them even discussing like, is marriage even something you want? By that same token, it would have been fucked up of Shona to sort of involuntarily pull Vish into a into a poly, sort of arrangement without talking to him about that. Like, I don't know. Like,
well, obviously she kisses Charlotte at the end and it's made clear. I mean, I think contextually it's made clear that it's like, oh shit, like we knew this was coming, but nobody wanted to talk about it, right? So like season 2 is definitely gonna have to address like what the fuck that is. And I'm like, season 2, let's talk about poly shit. Like, that's cool.
Anita just being like, thruple.
But also I would like to get both of your opinions on the speech that she gives. She talks about how like her one partner, Charlotte, doesn't want to be defined by her race, but then her other partner, Vish, like finds it very empowering to be defined by his race. And there's something about that whole monologue that I was like, what the fuck?
Well, I mean, it sounded to me, honestly, like, what a white woman in her mid-40s trying to think through these issues in, like a very sort of standard liberal way would say, and think like it was an empowering, kind of statement to make. And you were like, I don't know that either Vish or Charlotte would characterize things in the same way.
Is it that the writers wrote it so that knowing that what they wrote was kind of wonky and like on sort of brand for that character? Or is it that the writers don't know what they just did?
I don't know, because I do think that the writing is very smart, So in the I think first or second episode, the first episode where Vish and Shona go to that company holiday party, and that's where we meet Charlotte and also Anya's ex-boyfriend. When Vish and Shona are talking about like, so we have this game where we take a drink whenever we meet another woman or person of color in finance. And Charlotte's like, oh, well, do I get to, have 2 drinks? And then, Freddie, I think his name is Freddie, is like, oh, and I guess I get negative points. The way the show has shown to be like, yeah, exactly. Like, I think the show is pretty smart. So I don't know. But regardless of whether that's how the show wants us to take that speech of Shona's at the end, that's how I understood it. And I think there's space for that interpretation. Like, I don't think the show means us to think that, Shona is infallible by any stretch of the imagination. I think, it's safe for us to say like, oh, okay, this is the kind of speech that, a clueless white woman would give, like Karen adjacent. And I think the show supports that. Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hear you, and I don't disagree with anything you said. I still feel like how many people are going to watch that and be like, yeah, man, race is complicated like that, isn't it? I'm just like, and right. I think that if the writers are as smart as they think, if they're trying to make it so that Shona is more infallible, like they would do it in a way that's obvious.
There's a way.
Well, I guess to me, sorry, go ahead, Cara.
Well, because when she says what she says about Vish, like she says something along the lines of, to him, like his race is strength, and we see him like, I think we get a reaction shot of him basically like smiling and nodding or feeling like validated by what she's saying, rather than a look of, like a tilt of the head and like a kind of what. Mm-hmm. And I think if they wanted Shona, if they wanted us to be a bit sort of not feeling like, yeah, Shona gets it, then maybe that would have been an opportunity to signal that, right? But it does seem...
No, I think you're right. Like, they could have, demonstrated like either Vish's or Charlotte's skepticism in that moment better. I guess to me, like, I didn't take anything at face value in that speech, because I read Shona's acceptance of Vish's proposal as a mistake. And the show suggesting that, like, although she has expressed, that she doesn't know what she wants, nevertheless, she recognizing that accepting this proposal is the safe choice to make. And that is why then she kisses Charlotte at the end, because she's like, oh shit, what did I just do? I mean, yeah, I think she and Charlotte have that great connection, amazing chemistry, but I don't know that I think like they make a good couple instead of her and Vish. I just think she thought, this is, like, I've achieved one kind of success, right. This professional success, and it makes sense for me to just, buckle down and do the other thing, which is get married to this guy who's also at the top of his career. And then, afterwards was like, oh no. So I don't know. We'll see.
I mean, there's a way in which, for me, this whole season, I mean, while I think it's, it's good, does feel a bit like narrative setup for conflicts and dynamics that might be explored in the second season. So, not only Shona's interesting dynamic with both Vish and Charlotte, but also Anya's, relationship with Steven, right? Like is that, and also with her ex.
Wait, who's Steven? Richard is the dad of it.
Richard.
Right?
Sorry. Right.
Okay,
Richard, the dad, and
maybe
Steven's
the guy she sleep like her ex.
Well, Etienne is the son. That's French Steven. That's what I thought she meant.
So it's sort of like, okay, like this is good groundwork, but it does almost feel like, okay, in the second season we can maybe start to really get into some of this stuff in a way that's more active and more interesting.
Although I will say the kind of like tense electricity between Richard and Anya, and that one scene, I was like, yo, this kind of slow burn, I'm here for it. I don't even know if I want consummation, but just keep like looking at each other and like sliding hands together. Oh, anyways.
I actually, I really like him as an actor.
I think he's great.
And that, like, the whole time you're like it is clear early that there's going to be some tension between them, right? But like when you're like, no, this is a terrible idea, it's also just like, I really like their dynamic and I like how they're doing this, and how, like, it's almost like, it almost feels like Anya like didn't have to work for things before, and this one, like, she kind of has to work for a little bit,
Yeah.
But also what I don't like about it is that he's kind of a dick and like is, like doesn't really get, I don't know.
He needs to like learn. He needs to loosen up or something. Like there's something.
Like they're polar opposites in a lot of ways, right? And so that's the interesting tension and dynamic that's happening here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I am looking forward to season 2. Who knows when we'll ever get it?
It's supposed to come out this year.
For real.
Yep.
So they've already, man. So I'm gonna have to pirate that shit because we ain't gonna get it on time. Anyway.
I mean, unless I'm making that up, but I think I saw that somewhere.
That's right. I'm gonna follow up and triple check on that because I really did enjoy the show. And 6 episodes. Listen, y'all, they're like 22 minutes long. You can watch all of these episodes in the amount of time it takes to watch Tenet, which we will be talking about next week. We'll be right back to share some freak outs.
Hey friends, thanks for listening to FFR. If you enjoy our weekly conversations about the intersection of feminism and pop culture, consider hopping over to patreon.com/femfreak and joining our podcast community. You can get access to exclusive bonus episodes, join our friendly Discord server, participate in polls to help decide topics for future episodes, and more. Plus, you'll be helping us keep bringing FFR to the virtual podcast airwaves. Visit patreon.com/femfreak today.
What's your freak out?
Now it is time to talk about what's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us this past week. Caro, hit it.
Yeah, so I watched, there's a new series on Netflix, and it is called Pretend It's a City, and it's directed by Martin Scorsese, and it's a really, like, it's just a low-key, chill 7-episode, each episode is about half an hour long, and it's really just Marty. I think of because his friends call him Marty, and because so the star of the series is Fran Lebowitz, and if you don't know who Fran Lebowitz is, she has had kind of like what I consider the dream career as a public figure, as a woman of letters or whatever, because she wrote, like, she is a humorist, she is a very funny, very piercingly intelligent, observant woman writer. But I mean, she wrote like 2 books in, one in 1978, one in 1980, like slim volumes of observant essays about, New York City and so on. And largely since then, she has just been like this kind of revered public figure who, like, she doesn't write much, anymore, but she nonetheless is beloved. She's, she makes a living as like as just being a speaker, just like doing public appearances where she just wittingly like makes observations.
Just like sits down and smokes and is, incredibly witty.
And so like there's like a bit of envy, like that kind of like aspirational envy of like, man. But what's interesting is I think that I don't think a career like that is even possible today, or certainly not to the way it was. So she's 70 now, right? So she was she was like in like 28 and 30 when her books were published in 1978 and 1980. She's 70 now in 2021. But like now, to be a writer like that in the field is so competitive. There's so much output. There's so much stuff being released all the time that you have to not only, be constantly putting out new material, but you have to like probably maintain your brand on Twitter and Instagram. And, Fran, she has no computer, no Twitter, no Instagram, no nothing. So anyway, like, watching this show, like, it's not like there was a real pleasure in just the experience of watching it. Partially because I think it's, for me, it's one of those things where it's also the right show at the right time, in the sense of it really just feels a lot like, oh, I'm just get to hang out in this, in this bar in New York City and like listen to Fran Lebowitz talk about things where, because I'm so starved for just like being around people and like having, conversations about things that matter to me. And while Fran Lebowitz says a lot of things that I disagree with, and I don't think the show totally positions her, or that she positions herself as someone we have to agree with about everything, like, she is somebody who thinks about art in a serious way, and like, so in that sense, like, gosh, I'd love to be part of this conversation, even though if I were actually talking to Fran Lebowitz, I'd be so intimidated by her wit that I wouldn't be able to say anything. I mean, like, there's a little bit of transphobia in there, which is really unfortunate. But like, she, at one point, like, she talks about like, how she hates sports. But then we get Spike Lee kind of, so Spike Lee appears at times, kind of pushing back against that and trying to like convince her of why great athletes are great and why sports matter and all of these things, but there's also in it a real awareness of how New York has evolved over the past 40 years. In ways that I love New York, but even when I go there just as a visitor, as a tourist, like, I can feel what's being lost as the city, as it becomes more, more chain restaurants, and like the independent bookstores all vanish, and the the working class all night diners where the cab drivers eat, all these kinds of cultural institutions and things are lost as the identity of the city changes, and there's a real wistfulness in this series about that I found kind of endearing. But I don't know. It's it's really it's light, it's breezy, but it's also substantial because they do talk about substantial things, and so it's a really interesting and enjoyable series. So if the idea of just listening to a very smart, opinionated woman opine humorously about things for several hours sounds entertaining to you, maybe check it out, because I certainly found it quite entertaining.
That does sound appealing to me, and I am gonna check it out. And I'm gonna come back and you and I can have a conversation about Marty and Fran.
Yeah.
and everybody else.
I mean, Marty's role, it's kind of funny in a way, because Marty's role in this series almost is just like cracking up constantly at the things that Fran is saying. Like, he just everything she says, like, he finds it hilarious and he just laughs and laughs. And I mean, he's not wrong. Like, I mean, she is extremely funny. So yeah.
I love those old friendships, between two people who are like just incredible thinkers and artists, and you think like, God, what would it be like to just be, at a table, like at a house party, hanging out with them?
I know, like I envy, like it's like, oh gosh, where are the people I can go and like have these, late into the night conversations about things with. They're so beautiful, to even just witness and at a bit of a remove as we get to do here. They both
like who is the James Baldwin to my Lorraine Hansberry?
Exactly.
Come
like
on.
That's kind of what this captures for me, is that the allure of the party that's genuinely fun. It's not like stuffy. It's not like snobbish. Although Fran definitely is a snob in some ways, and she's very open about that. And I think she's out of touch about some money and certain things at times in this series. But I mean, there isn't that like aloofness to it, right? There's a warmth to the dynamic here that's really pleasant.
I might check that out tonight. That sounds right up my alley. Y'all can submit your own freakouts at feministfrequency.com/freakout. That's FREQOUT. We want to hear what's, sticking in your craw, things that are making you excited. Talk to us. All right, that's it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening to Feminist Frequency Radio. Join us next week for a discussion of Tenet, which is available to rent on many streaming services. It just, heads up, it is going to be me and Caro. Anita is going to be, I don't know, probably communing with the succulents in her yard or something, but she is taking some well-deserved time off. So without a substitute teacher, Caro and I are going to get up to some shenanigans. This show is engineered by Rob Pera. Carrie Stimson provides technical support. Artwork is by Jamie Varon, and our intro music is by Phil Serkis. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye.